Nour Odeh, who is a Palestinian affairs analyst, a former spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority. Nour, thank you so much for your time. In terms of the international reaction, what did you make of the American statement saying that Israel has a right to protect itself? Is that indicative to you of the situation the Palestinians find themselves in?
Absolutely. The statement by the Biden administration is nothing less than a green light for Israel to continue this assault, the deadliest, the widest, and most ferocious in over 20 years against a very densely populated refugee camp that has been under persistent attacks for the past year and a half, almost 2 years. Already we know that this year Israel has killed nearly 200 Palestinians, including children. We've heard from UN experts and human rights leaders calling for accountability for these crimes, for targeting civilians, for targeting children. We've seen Israel approve more settlements in the past 6 months than in the entirety of last year. So this assault on Jenin and the fact that the American administration is willing to excuse it and provide political cover for it is part of an onslaught that makes Palestinians feel that their entire existence is under attack, and not just the Jenin refugee camp.
No, the methods that the Israelis are using are one thing, attacks from the air with drones and missiles, and then attacks from the ground. But in terms of the aim, as far as Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned, he says the security forces are looking for a very specific number of people who they have identified. Do you think these people that the Israelis are looking for are members of these newish armed groups that have arisen there in Palestinian territories since the Palestinian Authority seemed to lose a bit of contact with the people that they're supposed to represent? Is that what has led to the rise of these new armed groups?
Well, the rise of new armed groups is part of a very natural pattern of resistance for any people who find themselves under a foreign military occupation that they reject. Nobody wants to be ruled against their will by a foreign power. And that's the story of the Palestinian people, whether it's armed wings that we've known and we've seen operating traditionally over the past decades, or new groups that have emerged in Nablus and Jenin. The Palestinian Authority finds itself in a very precarious situation. It is weak. It has a legitimacy crisis. It is losing touch with its people and unable to defend them. But what Israel is doing, and what it has been doing for over half a century which is the time span of this supposed occupation, is to defend this regime of control and domination by launching successive assaults against Palestinian towns, villages, cities, and refugee camps. And it has failed consistently, despite all the death and destruction, to take the idea of wanting to be free out of the minds of Palestinians. That's the lesson of history. It's not unique to Palestine. And we will continue to see these tragic scenes emerging out of different parts of the occupied Palestinian territory, so long as Israel maintains this colonial occupation and so long as it continues to escape any form of accountability at the international stage.
The thing is, of course, the Palestinians are faced with the most right-wing government in Israel's entire history. So at what point does it become obvious? Quite clearly, there's no peace process at the moment. But at what point does it become obvious to the Palestinians that diplomacy with that right-wing government is not going to work, and therefore armed struggle becomes the main way to resist?
Well, it's very obvious for Palestinians. Everybody understands that this government not only does not want peace, it has stated very openly that its aim is to crush the notion of Palestinian freedom and statehood, that its aim is to permanently colonize and annex the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Authority is reading out of the handbook given to it by the international community, which continues to insist on protecting the occupier and demanding surrender from the occupied. This formula is is a failure. It has proven to be such. And the Palestinian people are, have simply dismissed that playbook. And there is wide popular support for opposing the occupation, because again, that is in human nature. Nobody wants to be subjugated and dominated by a brutal foreign military occupation, whether it's popular resistance or armed resistance. People will find a way to voice and express their opposition to this occupation. I think the crisis for the international community right now is the fact that it is exposing itself to be extremely hypocritical. On the one hand, in other situations, it opposes military occupation. It provides assistance for armed resistance to that occupation. It imposes sanctions on invading armies. And on the other, it is protecting Israel. It is protecting it from accountability. It is defending its assaults on an occupied people against international law. And it's finding pretexts to kind of rewrite international law to the detriment, not just to the Palestinians, but to the whole international order that states and peoples want to adhere to, guided by universality of human rights. If those human rights were universal, then the international community, countries around the world, have a lot to answer for when it comes to failing the Palestinian people and leaving them to face such devastation and brutality on their own.
Nour Odeh, thank you very much indeed for your time, Nour. Take care.